alternator S10 interior lights flash and flicker. We're going to see if we got a fix for it. Hey guys, today we're going to go ahead and replace the alternator on this 2002 Chevy S10. We've been having some issues with it during the night. The lights seem to be dimming and kind of flashing. It seems to be a pretty common issue with these Delco alternators. So we're going to go ahead and replace this one and see if it solves our issue. Alright, we want to start by removing your positive wire for your battery. Always remember to disconnect the battery. After you have your battery disconnected, you want to go ahead, place a 3/8 ratchet on your tensioner. It has a slot design in a square to fit your ratchet. You take your ratchet, pop it in, and you depress the tensioner, and it loosens your serpentine belt. Once you have your serpentine belt removed, we're going to go ahead and loosen 2 bolts, which are 13 millimeter, on the front of the alternator. You have 2 13 millimeter studs here that go all the way through and bolt into the back of the bracket. We want to remove both those. On the back of the alternator, you will have 2 13 millimeter bolts. It's a little bracket in the back. You want to remove both of those. If you loosen the bottom bolt, you don't have to take it all the way out. The bracket itself will just slip up and off the bolt. Once you have those bolts out of the back of the alternator and out the front, the alternator is still in there pretty good. You have these little spacers here that actually get pushed into the alternator to kind of hold it in place, so you have to kind of pry it out of there in order to get it out. Okay, once you have your alternator up and out, you have a tab on the back for your electrical connector, and then you have your battery positive wire. Make sure your battery is disconnected before removing the battery positive. Put your wrench on your 13 behind the cable and your ratchet on top. That way you don't break the stud off the back of the alternator. and your alternator's ready to come out. Alright, we're ready to put the new alternator in. The two spacers down here at the bottom, you're going to want to lightly tap them back in with something, something you can get to them on. You want to get them tapped back in just a little bit, but you got to be real careful with this ear, because this ear here likes to break off these brackets. So you lightly tap this one. Once you have those tapped back a little bit, it makes sliding the alternator in a whole lot easier. Go ahead and attach your power wire. Take your 2 13s, your ratchet and your wrench, and just snug it. Reinstall the positive wire cover. Go ahead and reinstall your cable there. Slip your alternator back down. Reinstall the 2 bolts that hold the alternator up. Hand start them so that way they don't cross thread. And on the back here, take your bracket here, slip it back on the back of the alternator here. Once you get these 2 bolts tightened back down, proceed with the front bolts and re-snug them. Okay, once you got your 2 front bolts and your rear bolts in, you want to go ahead and reinstall the belt. Make sure you get your belt lined up, all your pulleys. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a task to get it back on. Just be patient with it and it'll slip right back into place. Then double check and make sure it's aligned with all the grooves. Now for the last item, you want to reinstall your positive battery wire. This one here had come apart, so we're going to repair it and reinstall it, and then double check over everything, make sure you got everything plugged up, make sure your belt's back in the right position, and start it up and see how it does. Alright you guys, as you can see, the light is not flashing anymore. I believe the alternator had a bad voltage regulator, so we replaced it and now we have no more flashing. Hope this helps.